my mom knew something was going to be wrong with our vision due to her father losing his vision. And of course, back then, she just knew there was going to be something wrong. They said, unfortunately, your sons, both of your children, have a disease called choroideremia, which is a retinal degenerative disease, and there's no cure, there's no treatment, and at some point at this time, they knew that we were going to lose our vision completely and go completely blind. My mother had the wherewithal, and she was a young woman. Me as a father now, I've got a 20-year-old and a 16-year-old. I believe she had my brother when she was she was like 16 or 17, and me when she was 21. So this is a young girl, a young lady, and she had the wherewithal to seek actively in a foreign country something that she knew to help her children and line up things to help her children in the future.
She did not give up.
Did not give up, and that has never stopped to this day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the All Mercy Podcast. We are so excited to have you guys watching today. We always talk about everything or anything relating to mental health. What is our health without mental health? Anything can relate to mental health. And today, I have a very dear friend, somebody that I can call a friend. And I've known him not too long ago, but being in his presence is so enchanting, it is so exciting, and it is so deserving. In the end, you feel so rewarded just being with him, spending the least time with him. It refreshes not just your body, but your soul. This person has a disease. I may never pronounce it correctly. Choroideremia, right?
Choroideremia.
Choroideremia. It is an incurable retinal dystrophy disease where it progresses to loss of vision. It is a gene mutation complication. We're not going to get into that. And was diagnosed very early in life. Now, I think I'm trying to paint a little picture here. How would you feel if that was you? Sad, angry, mad, unhappy, depressed, anxious, growing up not knowing what the future holds for you, growing up not knowing how you're going to survive, growing up not knowing how some of the privileges in life will interfere with your normal life. Growing up very uncertain of what people take for granted would look like for you. And I'll let him introduce himself. Mr. Joe, my dear friend, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Joe Hagan. I live in Burleson, Texas, and I work full-time as an activities director in Crowley, Texas. And I'm celebrating my 32nd year, so I'm really proud of that, being an activities director in long-term care. 32 years, yeah.
32 years?
32 years. I talk a little bit about how I got into that, and I'm also a professional musician. I play professionally, and I've always kept my day job. But I'm married to a lovely lady named Penny Hagin, which we actually met in music, and I could talk about that. And I have two lovely children, a 20-year-old named River, who's awesome, and a 16-year-old daughter named Lola Jo. So,
tell us a little bit about your disease. When were you diagnosed, and so on?
Yes. Well, I've got a 4-year-old brother. There's just two siblings. One's myself and my brother. So my brother's name is Bob. And I'm 58 years old, and he's 4 years older than me. And my mom, we moved to Texas actually 50 years ago this year. So we moved to Texas in 1974. And my mom knew something was going to be wrong with our vision due to her father losing his vision. And of course, back then, she just knew there was going to be something wrong. So I just spoke with my mom about this to get a little clarification because it's been so long. But at the time, we were living in Turkey, and this was between the years 70 and 73. My stepfather, Nelson, who I consider my father, has raised me. My parents got a divorce at a very young age when I was very little. My biological dad was in the Navy. And so when we were, Nelson is in the Air Force, my stepfather, we ended up in Turkey. And during that time, my mom was reaching out to some specialists to see what was going on and what would the future be like and what exactly this was in her past, as well as what's going to be happening with her children. And during that process, they did some tests on my mother, I believe, and they said that it looks like she had something going on. And with this disease, it doesn't affect females, but they're carriers. And with that said, it could be carried on to their children. So they said that she should probably go to Germany.
And how old were you at that time?
At the time, I was between the ages of 4 and 7.
Wow.
Yeah, so Bob would have been, add 4 years to everything that I'm saying, add 4 years. So I was between 4 and 7, and Bob would have been 8 and 12.
That's a long time to even remember what was going on.
So my mom decided, because we were in a foreign country and she didn't want to go to Germany, that she would wait until we got back to the States, which is what we did. So she put it on hold until we got back to the States in 74, 50 years ago. At this time, I was 8 and 12, and she was told to go to a place I don't have the hospital, but it was in San Antonio at the time, San Antonio, Texas. And they said that this would be the best place to get assessed and to get diagnosed. So we went to San Antonio when I was 8, Bob was 12, and through those tests, they said, unfortunately, your sons, both of your children, have a disease called choroideremia, which is a retinal degenerative disease, and there's no cure, there's no treatment, and at some point at this time, they knew that they were going to lose their vision. We were going to lose our vision completely and go completely blind. So that was that's what we were told as a family.
Whoa.
Of course, I was so little. I don't recall this because I was probably I don't really remember much of that trip.
Absolutely.
I'm 58 years old now.
You don't look 58, Joe.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You don't look 58.
That's how we initially found that we had a disease and we had a name for it. So I was in choroideremia, and I'm sure you'll post the exact spelling.
I will. And just imagine at that age of 8, they are telling you that you're going to go blind. There is no cure for this. This is the prognosis. This is how it's going to progress. There's nothing to be done. I'm sure at that age, Joe, 8 years old, I'm not even sure how you could digest that.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't process that in the situation where it was like, oh my gosh, I'm going blind. And what am I going to do? It was not that. It wasn't panic mode at that time, and it wasn't even, really didn't affect me. And I remember growing up, because like it is a degenerative disease, it wasn't like, I had quite a bit of vision. And as I got into junior high school, I was able to play varsity sports. I went to Richland High School in North Richland Hills, and I played basketball all the way up till I was a junior in high school. So the vision that I had was way, way more, because it's a progressive disease at that time. So I was able to do quite a bit. Now it wasn't until I was about time to drive where I realized that I was going to be different. I was going to not be able to do that. And I made a conscious decision at that time through the medical professionals to say that, hey, Joe, it's not going to be safe for you to operate a car. So I made the decision that I wasn't going to do that. And you could imagine, it's not like we're talking about, gosh, this was whatever year that was. There was no internet, there was no Uber and all this kind of stuff. So a driver's license for a 16-year-old kid is the world, And so
even now it still is.
Yeah.
And let me say this. A driver's license is something that we all take for granted. Like,
Sure. Yeah.
I have to drive. I can drive.
yeah.
I am of age.
Yes.
Then just imagine somebody get to that age and not being able to drive. And in our shows, what we do is that we come up with an original quote. Joe, I came up with this quote before I ever knew your story or met you. It was saying, do you have sight or do you have vision? And I put under the quote saying, I pray you have both.
Yeah.
Now, there is a difference between sight and vision. And yes, I pray you have both. In a very tender age, they're telling you you will progressively not see.
Yes.
And you experience that yourself. Sometimes you're losing your sight. Are you losing your vision as well? And maybe Joe can help us with that. Joe, did you ever feel like you lost your vision, or was it just your sight?
I mean, if you're talking about vision of like what I wanted to do with my life and the seeing, seeing where I wanted to go and what I want to do and some of the goals that I had, I never lost that. And to this day, I've never lost the vision of what I want to do. And I think that's a good point. I've never heard that quote. And it's, talking about sight and vision.
Sight and vision, yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, you can...
Because look at it this way, Joe. We take a lot for granted.
Sure.
We take a lot for granted. We wake up, we can see things, we can go to the bathroom, we can brush our teeth. We think that's normal life.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not normal for some people.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's one of those things. I work in long-term care, and I work with a lot, mainly geriatric, but, I've worked with a lot of younger people, a lot of psych people that end up in facilities, for many different reasons. But over the years, seen a lot. But there's people that have, a lot of problems with their vision that I've dealt with, and it's come on later in their life. Mm-hmm. And matter of fact, I spoke with a lady, that's having a really, really difficult time. And this lady's in her 80s. And I believe hers is, which was ironically what my grandma ended up losing her vision over, something totally different, but it's called macular degeneration, which you've heard that a lot from the elderly. And you can kind of look into that, what that is. And some of your family members have actually experienced that. So this lady had a really, really hard time. And, I'm the activities director in a nursing home, so I'm here. You talk about the blind leading the blind. So I'm trying to explain to her that, listen, your director got this disease too. But one thing that she did say to me is, Joe, well, you've had your whole life to prepare for this, and you've had little by little, you've lost more and more, which is a good point. Yes, that's true. But the premise is still the same. Mm-hmm. Your sight, you cannot let your disability or your sight define who you are, because that's where you can start to go down the rabbit hole of some of these.
Say that again, Joe.
Yeah,
say that again.
You cannot let your disability, your sight, mine happens to be a sight one, but I don't care what it is, you're doing. If you've lost, I've dealt with people that have lost limbs, and whether it be other mental type of issues that you're going through, it's really easy to use that as who you are. And I could talk to you a little bit about, that's why I had the hardest time for me working with a sight cane. And it wasn't until a few years ago. I should have been using a sight cane years and years ago, but I wasn't able psychologically to deal with the fact of, I didn't want that to define me. And if I walk into a room with
Joe, was there ever a moment where you sat and be like, oh my God, what is next for me?
Yes, I reached out. There's times because, little by little, I would lose more sight. So I see things in blocks. So not when I'm seeing blocks, but what I mean to say is, I can remember like, oh, I could do that when I was 20, or I could do that in my 30s, or I could do that in my 40s. So I remember things, but there was times as I've lost more and more of my vision, that I started to get more concerned with, how am I going to extend my career safely to be able to provide for my family as long as I possibly can, doing what I'm doing. Luckily,
Joe,
yeah.
was there that moment where you say, God, why me? Because I was reading a little bit about this, and I saw that it says 1 in 50,000 males.
Yes.
50,000. And
Yes.
you're like, why
Why
me?
me? That's a great.
Like,
That's
did you crumble? Did you fall
no,
before getting back up?
no. That when you say why me, like I said, me working in a nursing home for 32 years, I have seen. There's people with perfect vision, with great vision, that walk out and get hit by a car or fell off a ladder or are dealing with schizophrenia or really, really deep mental issues.
And let me say
Yeah.
that. Let me add something to that.
Yes.
There are people with great vision, with great sight,
Exactly.
with no vision.
That's you go. There you go.
There are people with great sight, nothing wrong with their
That's-
eyesight. They can see from far, from near. They can see
That's
everywhere.
And
But-
you can roll that quote on your thing. That's the quote right there. That's it in a nutshell. You know,
But no vision at all.
That's right.
Zero vision.
I probably could have
Give
easily
me 5, Joe.
5. There you
Yes.
go. That's
Yes.
great.
Yes.
You know,
I like that.
it's something that you can crumble up and get in a fetal position and say, why me, this is what I can't do, this is what oh gosh, I can't, the independence I don't have, I have to rely on people, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do. Well, yeah, you got to do that. My big thing is I believe I'm more of a spiritual person. I believe, I don't know if you've ever played cards. You're dealt a hand, right?
Yeah.
You're playing poker. I don't know very much about cards, but here's your cards. I'm going to do, here's your cards, here's
Yeah,
your
play
cards.
cards.
You have to play your cards, right? If you want to be in the game. If you don't want to be in the game, you flip them over and say, I'm out, I fold. I think they call it folding. I'm dealing everybody's dealt their hand. Mine happens to be a bad hand with vision. Yeah, okay, I've got that card in my deck that I'm holding. Now I can try to get another couple cards and do the best that I can and stay in the game. That's what I've tried to do.
And I also know that, you know how sometimes they say, this is who you are, this is what you have, that is it. There's nothing else. There is no cure.
Yeah.
It's just going to be progressive until you get blind.
Yeah.
But sometimes we don't take those messages and just sit on them or believe in them. It doesn't mean that is the end for you. Get another opinion, seek other ways, get some
Exactly.
resources,
Yes.
do different things. And with Joe's case, that's what his mother did. His mother did not just say, oh, my son is just going to be progressively
Exactly.
losing his vision until he gets blind. And dealing with 2 children with the
Yes.
same condition, I'm sure that was horrific. So Joe's mother advocated for him, sought out different places where they cannot give him his sight back, but they can stop the progression. Joe, was that effective?
I call this fur riser. There's a thing where something that you say that touches you,
Yeah.
it raises your fur. It's
Like
called
goose pimple.
goosebump.
Yeah.
And as you were saying, and you brought up my mother's name, I started getting goosebumps because it really wasn't until I was speaking with a cohort that kind of got me involved with you,
Right.
and through some initial interview, that she really opened my eyes at how my mother was everything about. I mean, I could see how it could have gone the other way. If I would have had a
Absolutely.
mother that said, hey, you got a problem with your vision, well, do what you can. My mother had the wherewithal, and she was a young woman. Me as a father now, I've got a 20-year-old and a 16-year-old. I believe she had my brother when she was she was like 16 or 17, and me when she was 21. So this is a young girl, a young lady. And she had the wherewithal to seek actively in a foreign country something that she knew to help her children, and line up things to help her children in the future.
She did not give up.
Did not give up, and that has never stopped to this day. She,
I can see where you get the fight from.
yeah. So she was the one that says, no, okay, listen, you got this, so what are we going to do? Where are we going to do? Well, how are we going to try to be on the latest of the thing and read when the internet came up, get involved of the groups. My wife is the same way. Penny was the one that was kind of getting into these choroideremia.
Penny is Joe's wife.
Just my wife, Joe's wife. And so really it was my mom that said, and Summer kind of the friend brought that up, and it wasn't until that I realized, man, I had taken that for granted, that my mom was such a vital part of me getting the help that I needed, which led to many different things with my disease.
Joe, when we advertised this topic,
Yeah.
we had some viewers questions, and I'll let you drink some water. And this one was funny, and I think you should answer it if you want to.
Okay.
So it says, Joe, we appreciate your time. We love your tenacity. But as someone who has never obtained a driver's license due to your vision loss, how have you navigated dating and relationships? What advice do you have for others facing similar challenges? How have you been dating,
Yes.
and how have you been navigating relationships without being able to drive?
Specifically dating, really funny, and that's a great question. Ironically,
And Joe's wife is so beautiful.
yes, thank you. Ironically, my son is right about the age where I started into that process. I was in junior college trying to find myself, taking just basic classes. And one of the great things, I think, is putting yourself in a position where you can be around whoever you're wanting to date and make it happen organically, if that makes any sense. I worked for the college, and I worked at what was called rec sports at the time. So I was in a situation where I was in a gymnasium. There's other students. I was a student also. This is where where all the exercise equipment was, and the health concepts classes were being held, and the gym, the basketball, and the running. And that's where I actually met my what turned out to be my first girlfriend. And it happened where, like I said, it was just, I was in the right, it wasn't like a bar situation. It wasn't, I had to go in what, I don't want to call it normal people would go in to meet girls. It wasn't like in a party. It wasn't like in a date.
Now that you say normal people,
Yeah.
are you normal, Joe?
I consider myself normal. I mean,
Yes.
I don't see myself. The vision thing, I am who I am because of my vision too. I wouldn't be who I am and have these other little quirky things because of who, it's kind of how you almost like the saying where you don't know what you got if you've never had it. You don't miss something that you don't have. So I've never had good vision.
Joe, there is a quote that I say, and I always say, I think I posted this already as well, saying we can also take our challenges as opportunities.
That's right.
Is that something that you can relate with, Joe?
Yeah, it does. And it does open the doors for a lot of different things. But the dating thing was funny because I had girls working out, and we met that way and started to run, and so it grew that way. And then it was an opportunity for me to address the fact, because at that point I never was able to, because I'd never been on a date prior to that. Right.
So that was your first date.
That was
your first girlfriend.
I was 20. Yeah. So I think.
And that is your wife.
No, that's not my wife. That's not my wife. But it was my first relationship, and it happened. But what I would tell young Joes or young folks that are dealing with whatever it does, it doesn't have to be a vision thing. It could be something that you are dealing with. It could be anything. Is just be honest and communicate those. It took me a long time for me to open up to people and let them know about my disability. And that's where, ironically, a lot of my anxiety and I wouldn't call it depression, but I definitely have high anxiety. And I take medication for my high anxiety. And most of it is related to vision loss, if that makes any sense. Going into normal situations spikes my anxiety. Even coming here and being into a house, and am I going to trip on something? Am I going to look stupid? Am I going to do something? These are things that go rushing through my mind. Not that it's debilitating, but those are added things that I have to deal with.
Because of some uncertainty.
Uncertainty,
right,
yeah.
Uncertainties.
So the main thing with my...
Especially when it is an unfamiliar environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So through the question initially was about dating. Through high school, through junior
Not just dating,
yeah,
relationships,
relationships.
even with your peers.
That's
and
right.
things like that.
Growing up, I isolated myself through junior high and high school. You know, I was all into sports. So meeting girls and whether it's meeting a girl or meeting a boy, whatever, it's the same thing, is, you know, I wasn't able to express myself to somebody because I was such a young age. We're talking about 14, 15, 16, 17 through high school. So I just made a purpose decision. I'm just going to stay home and do what I do, right? I wasn't able to go, hey, listen, I think you're attractive, or do you want to go get pizza, or you want to go to a movie, or you go to a dance, or whatever it is. Wasn't able to address those things. And this is not a sob story. It's just the reality of where I was in my mindset. It wasn't until I met my first girlfriend, then through that, and I just happened to be there next to her, that it led to a relationship. And through that, I was able to open up and like, oh, by the way, you're going to have to drive to the wherever we were going. And, you know, that led to me slowly being able to deal with so if I was going to say anything to anybody else, I would want somebody else to get to it earlier, to encourage somebody. This is me.
And like you say, be honest about it.
Be honest to myself. And did I miss out on some things like dances and proms and all that? Yes, I did. Well, that was my own choice. So what I would encourage you is at a young age is to just be really frank. Because what I found as I've gotten older was knowledge is a wonderful thing. Letting somebody know, hey, listen, I'm visually impaired. I've got this going on. And this, you know, we're just talking about my vision. I mean, if it's talking about me, it's a vision thing. Whatever you're dealing with, let somebody know, because I found out that people will literally bend over backwards with that knowledge. And if I wish I could have known that and been able to deal with that a lot younger.
A lot younger, yeah.
And like I said, this is not a sob story. It's just maybe if it's
so
able to
even
help.
when you met your wife, were you able to be opened up and say, hey, Penny, I may lost my vision, or...
Yeah, you know, through college. Now, once again, as I got into college, I actually got a degree in recreation administration through the University of North Texas. I wanted to get into what my brother Bob got into, and he ended up working for the city of North Richland Hills, working in athletics and doing programming and planning of city leagues, right? And that's what my training was initially. And so I wanted to do that, and that's why I chose that degree. And so I was actually married briefly to another lady that I met in college, which we were only married for a very short time, and she went her way and I went my way. And then through getting into music is where I met my wife.
Wow.
And I could talk a little bit about that. But anyway, little by little, even in college, I wasn't able to come out of my shell and be honest with my disability. I would stay mainly in the dorm and do my music in college.
But those you were close to knew what was going on.
It was even difficult. Some of my friends that I have now that it was in college, I was in a band too. So a dear friend of mine named Jim.
You did everything, Joe.
Yeah.
You did a lot more than people who have all their side did.
Yeah. Even one of my closest friends or my bandmate didn't really know the true what was going on with me, how permanent this disease, and how, I don't want to say the fact that I wasn't having a car and I would never have a car, I wasn't able to sit and discuss with them. Yeah, they knew, oh, Joe's got something going on with his vision, you know, but even through college...
They did not know the severity.
The severity of it. No, they didn't know. And I remember talking to Jim early on when I first met him. He's like, dude, why don't you have a car? And I was like, I would dance around that, you know.
Did you ever, Joe, think about this. Did you ever feel like you were masking your life? Did you ever feel like you're portraying another image that was not you? Because that's the difficult shell to be in as well.
It was. And it was a little bit of that, if you want to say. I was hiding that, and I was, because... And I put that up to my age and the fact that and we can talk about a little bit about when I'm getting into the cane and what brought me to that and that point. But at that time, I was always under the understanding, not just through college, but when I got out into my career, is when I walked into a room, or when I was doing what I do, like I do music, also on the side, I did not want to bring a spotlight to my vision and my disability. So when I moved in, when I was doing music in bars and breweries and restaurants, I didn't want anybody to look at me right off the bat and see me coming in with a cane and because what that does is when somebody looks up, oh, here comes a blind man, and that blind man's going to do music. Or if I'm at work,
like,
yeah,
I think what if maybe I'm wrong, but what you're saying is we just get a preconceived idea or maybe even a judgment,
And
and
you're right.
or sometimes it's even like pity, or not only that, that is all they see. They don't see the other part of it.
I don't want to say it's a stigma. You can call it a stigma or whatever, but if you see a person in a wheelchair, a person in a walker, a person with a cane, right or wrong, you've made a judgment on them.
Already.
Right or wrong, you're going to look, because it's in your face. There's a guy, oh, he's blind. There's a guy in a wheelchair. They need, and that's all I'm around is wheelchairs, ironically, but you see somebody that, which it's actually, I'm finding, is a great thing. And one thing I'll touch on this is when I finally, and when you talk about the anxiety, when I talk about the anxiety and the things that gave me the hardest point with my vision, where I finally ended up on medication to try to help some of this and ease some of the anxiety, is when I was dealing with every normal day-to-day things that would be my work, going to work, interacting with volunteers at work, doing my job, or outside of work, going to Walmart or going and walking up to a line, or going to doing things, anything that would be a normal day-to-day thing with somebody with regular vision was a huge deal for me. I'll give you an example. Me going in line at a grocery store, I would have to pull my wallet out and find out where, because of my vision, I have blind spots in my field, right? So I had to wait in line. So the whole time my anxiety's raising. Okay, am I going to be able to see where I need to put my debit card? Am I going to have to push the buttons? And am I going to have to do this? And I'm going to be able to look and move. And the person in front of me, are they going to move up? And am I going to bump into somebody? So all this stuff.
And that can draw attention.
And hey, this is weird. Why is this guy not moving up in line? Why is he not doing? When I get up there, okay, and a lot of times people, without that cue of me holding a stick, a cane, I found, and we'll talk about this, is all of that anxiety, all that stress is out the door then.
Right.
Now,
because
people
there's that
see,
expectation.
oh, he's a little bit, and they go
and they can
out
even,
of the
can
way.
I help you?
Yes, they go out of the way. They'll go say, here, let me, I've had people come around the thing, here, do you need me to help you to push? And it's like all of a sudden, even me walking with a cane, when I started going through cane training about 4 years ago, it took me that long to actually say, okay, I'm going to need this.
4 years ago?
4 years ago. And so I've had people at work. It's so funny, when I actually started bringing out the cane, they're like, I'm such a goofy person, and no, doing what I do at work, I would wear crazy hats, hot dogs on my hats, and just all kinds of things to draw attention, to make people look at me and laugh and bring them out of their shell. But when I started bringing my cane to work, they were like, Joe, what are you doing? And they've seen me. They didn't know I had, to the extent of what I had. I go, well, actually, I'm actually need this. So I had to explain. Now it's funny, because now the residents will say, Joe, where's your cane? Get your cane. You need that. It's so. But back then, it got to a point where, because of me wanting to fit in and not bring any attention, I can see now that it was the worst thing for me.
Right.
It made me look weirder. It did draw attention to me. It did. Why is this person bumping into a chair? Is he, like, I have to work in bars a lot I'm a professional musician. My wife laughs at me, but when you get paid for something, I call that a professional. So
right.
I've done music professionally for the last 30 years. So going to the bathroom, if I bumped into something, was this guy drunk? Why is he acting this way? So ironically, it was bringing more attention to me, right? With the cane, all that goes out the window.
Right.
So
people go out of your way.
Yeah.
People help you. People assist you. People understand.
It's a cue. It's a nonverbal cue that, oh, okay, I get it.
Was there ever a moment, Joe, in your life when you met your wife and told her everything about it? And was there a moment where you felt like this thing is not just about you? It's
Yes.
not just about Joe.
Yes.
It may affect procreation.
Sure, yeah.
What if, like, your mother had you want to have children?
Yeah.
Is it going to be passed on? Were there those moments where you feel like, I am incapacitated in that area? What if I have a child
Exactly.
who comes out with this disease and things
Sure.
like that? And what did you do about it?
That's a great question, and that's something I dealt with. It's like I was in an acoustic band in the '90s, and with a girl, and we parted our ways. And so I was like, "Oh Lord, I have all these shows to play. I got to cover these shows somehow." And so what I did was I put an advertisement in the Fort Worth Weekly of all things, saying, "Looking for a female singer for a duo." Several girls answered the ad. I auditioned them. Penny, at the time, I was 30 years old, relatively newly divorced. I didn't want anything to do with anything women or relationships. I wanted simply to do music. I was going to bury myself in music. Penny was the one. She was 21 years old at the time. She's 9 years younger than me.
Penny is
turned out to be my wife. She was the one that I chose to be my partner in music. We started off in doing that. Through that process, fell in love. But during that process of playing music, right off the bat, once I decided to pick Penny as my partner in music, I had to sit down. Now, you have to understand, Penny was 21 years old, and I'm 30, and I'm like, I got to tell you something about, I've got a disease, and you're going to have to do all that. I had to be right up front because...
Right up front.
Yeah, it was no more like, we'll get to this at some point. It was going to be like a type of a working relationship. You're going to have to drive. You're going to have to help me get around in these clubs, and get going and everything like that. And she was like all for it. She's like, whatever, yes, let's go. Jumped in head over heels. Now, once we decided, as we started to fall in love, she looked at me right off the door when I opened the door, and she saw how incredibly handsome I was, and it was love at first sight. She knew right then that I'm kidding, but
you're not kidding. You are.
So as we fell in love, and as we realized that we wanted to live the rest of our life together, and at some point, I was on the fence with having children and addressing that fact because of what you said. I didn't have the wherewithal to know. At that point, I hadn't had the genetic counseling to know how my diseases passed, and I just knew that. I knew some of the struggles that maybe, a child might have with this disease. Not that I was totally cutting off the fact of ever having children, but I had a lot of questions at that point. So when it's funny, when I actually proposed to her, and it was the most non-eventful thing. We were at a mall, and I just pushed her into a...
I would love to know how that was.
Yeah, I pushed her into a jewelry store, and she's like, what are we doing? So we started looking at rings, and we found a ring. So she's freaking out, like, what is going on? Because at this point, we had been playing music together, falling in love, and we've been together now for, I don't know, it was a couple years maybe. And I wanted to make that leap and everything. So we looked at the ring, and then we came out, and we walked and sat on a bench. And the conversation went like this. I said, Penny... I don't know if I'm ever going to want to have children. And she says, we'll just cross that bridge when we have it. She was like, don't worry about that. We'll figure it out kind of thing. And that was the okay for me at that point. Oh. Now, with that said, since then, I have two wonderful children. I have a son named River, who's 20, and a daughter named Lola Jo, who's 16. And through the genetic counseling, we did find out prior to having kids how this disease is passed, and you can delve into that at some point. It basically, my son is going to be fine. He's unaffected. My daughter is going to be fine. She's unaffected, but she's turned into my mother now. And some of you folks that know a little bit more about the way X, Y, and this is going on, if Lola, as far as I know, if Lola has children, if she has boys, she's turned into my mother. If she has boys, she flips the coin. And they 50-50 chance whether they'll have the disease. If she has girls, they'll be unaffected, but they'll be a carrier, and then it's passed on that way through that. So with that said, we can talk a little bit about what happened with me in Portland and how that is going to possibly affect further generations.
Did they stop the progression of the disease when you went through all that? Was the progression stopped? I mean, they could not give you back what you have lost, but has the progression stopped?
So with that said, getting back to my mother was the one that had always kept an iron in the fire as far as the karate-remia. When I was growing up and I was in high school, and I'd go to an optometrist just for regular checkups, and I would tell them, oh, by the way, I'm got this disease called karyotyemia, and they'd like, what? And this was a doctor, and of course doctors specialize, he's not a retinal specialist, he makes glasses basically, and he does that. So even a doctor at that time wouldn't know they would have to look it up and what is
Right,
this,
and
and you know. So, but it was my mom that was constantly looking and studying and making sure what is the latest this, what is the latest that, what is the latest this. And it was probably, don't hold me to the years, but maybe 10 years ago, they actually isolated the gene that causes my disease. And with that said, there was going to be an opportunity for a treatment. So once, with whatever disease you have, you know, they've got to find out why is this happening? So that was groundbreaking that they said, this is the gene that causes
like I
choroideremia.
said, don't give up.
Yeah,
Science is
that's right.
evolving.
That's
Studies
right.
are evolving. Somebody will come up with something.
That's right.
And most of the time, if they can find the cause, then they are
There you go.
closer to the cause.
Treatment and then maybe cure. So with that said, so whatever you're going through, you know.
So the treatment that you went through in Oregon, Portland, were they able to stop the progression?
The short answer to that is hopefully yes. Were they able to restore vision back to what I've lost? No. So
How much can you see now?
I don't have the exact, you know, I went through a battery of a year-long study through and you can post this, whatever. It's the Dallas Retinal Foundation or whatever.
Right.
That's
Dallas
how.
Retinal Foundation.
Yeah, and maybe you could share that with them. Whether it's an eye disease, find out whatever is going on with you. Find out what the professional organization is and what is the latest clinical trial and what's the latest this and that. But with not getting too much into it, we found out that there was going to be a clinical trial and they said to reach out to the Retinal Institute. I went through a year-long study and then was completely randomly selected, and my brother was selected too, to have the treatment. And this was 5 years ago.
That's wonderful.
They flew me to Portland. There was 6 surgeons in the room. Actually, the creator of this procedure was from Oxford, England. He was in the room also. They detached my left retina, and through gene therapy, they replicated the gene that causes my disease, and they took that gene and multiplied it by 1 million and injected it into my eye to stop the progression. And so with that said, I was in a 5-year post study through the Dallas Retinal Foundation. And you'll post all this stuff. And with that said, as far as I know, yes, it looks like it stopped the progression in my eye.
And that was how long ago?
5 years ago. And so with that said,
wish they could have had that.
If I would have had this procedure, if they would have even known about this when I was 8 years old when they found this. When I was in high school, I was the number 2 seed. Thank you very much at Richland High School. I was a tennis player, you know, and played. I was good enough to play basketball. I wanted to be Dr. J. That's all I wanted to be. I was good enough to make the team, but I sat on the bench the whole time. So, to me, you ask, well, is there a what is it called? Not treatment, but is there a cure? I'm not saying there's a cure, but if I could have had that back then,
maybe you would
look
not
at that.
have progressed this
No,
far.
yeah, and it's a progression. So I've lost through my 20s, 30s, 40s. I'm 58 now. I was like 49 when I had this. So if I could have had this at that age, I would have been able to hopefully kept the vision that I have.
So many people ask a lot of questions, Joe. So many, especially in life, when we get impacted with something, it can change our course of life. It can change our dreams as well. It can change what we see ourselves as. It can even change what we want to do.
Yes.
Not only professionally, but personally as well. Many questions came in for you, Joe, when they realized that you are a activities director.
Sure.
And what you do. They asked, how is your daily life going, being a recreational activity director and all that? And if you could see 100%, if you had 100% sight, I'm trying to change vision and sight now.
Sure.
If you had 100% of your sight, would you be doing what you're doing now?
Yes, I think it is. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but through lots of different, we're regulated through the state of Texas. So we have surveyors that come in. We just had our full book annual survey last week, and I've gone through 32 of these. And I had the team leader. So on these groups of people, the surveyors that come out and witness what we do, not just activities, but through all the departments. They're there, and it's a big deal. People that know that
people get
in hospitals or nursing homes, they do that, and it's a highly stressful thing. And
it is very stressful.
I had,
and that's the point where who is the head of this?
That's right.
Where is Joe?
Yeah. So
do they ever get these are the surveyors? Do they ever get, I don't know, treat you differently? Well, make your own part of the survey go easier? Because
what I was going to say was this: the surveyor, the team leader, came up halfway through the survey and talked to my boss, and they don't know anything about my vision. So they have no idea about my vision, right? I wasn't using a cane. I was doing my job. They literally said to him, "We have never seen an activities program like this before, with the residents that are so happy, so engaged, so involved, has no idea about my vision," right? And he wanted to bring that to the attention of my boss. And they said, we really...
wow.
So I'm not sitting here to try to brag. So you can do what you want to do. Yeah, you can do what you... So I'm considered very good at what I do. And would I do it differently if I had vision? There might be some other...
would you do something else?
Well, there's things that I'm not able to do in my job, but that's where like the nurse aides will step up, and I have a wonderful building. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example.
You've worked there for 17 years.
17 years. So one of the things that we do is balloon volleyball, where I get the residents lined up, and they have a pool noodle, and they're smacking the ball. Well, it's difficult for me to look because I can't find the balls where... So that's where, during that activity, staff members will step in and help with that. Now, would I be able to do it by myself if I had the vision? Yeah, I could do it by myself, but now I'm able to do little adjustments and tweak it, and they just step in and help me with that little aspect of that. So there's little things that maybe I have assistance with, and I'm blessed with a supportive administrator and a company that sees those things, that are able to step up and make amends for those little things. But yeah.
And there's this questions that came in. As someone who has found ways to maintain an active lifestyle despite physical limitations, what guidance would you provide to individuals who are struggling to find motivation or adapt their hobbies and interests to fit their abilities?
That's a great question. And like I said, I not only am a full-time activities job director, and that's something that it's not a sit behind the desk job, right? I am moving constantly. I lead exercise. We go on outings and everything like that. So you find out what are some things out there that can help in different aspects. As far as the actual job, I actually reached out to the Texas Workforce Commission probably 5 years ago. That's when we talked about the cane. And so because I knew I was having, my vision had progressed, and I wanted to see what is out there to help. Are there any tools out there that can help me further my career, further my job to work as long as possibly that I could do? And I reached out to them, and they sent me to they said, well, one of the things you can do is be trained on a cane. And they trained me for months I had a counselor, and they took me, I was crossing streets downtown. They blindfold you, and I had to learn. So God forbid if I ever did go completely blind, now I'm fully cane trained. There's other different devices where on the computer, and everybody can do this if you're working in an office situation, I have stuff on my computer which is, they flip the contrast. So there's different things that I have to do. I have to do a lot of paperwork and stuff, and I have to do that. So there's little things that there's out there that you can help. And Workforce Commission does two things. If you have a disability where it's a vision, they will find you a job and find the tools to give you to continue that job.
Find ways to accommodate you.
Mm-hmm. Or if you have a job, they will give you tools to keep that job. And I had the job, and I just needed to find... There's a device that's called, I can't even remember, it's a little...
So most of the time we get incapacitated because we don't know, we don't search, we don't seek resources, we don't get the help that we need.
That's right.
So in everything, let us not just stay in our own corners believing that is the end. Seek help. Get resources. Someone may always know more than... And sometimes you may be surprised how much some of those resources can be free. And and how much the government is willing to...
Tell you, I didn't mean to... I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you up. One of the things that just came to my mind was when I was going through the workforce commission, and you have to, don't quote me on this, but one of the things that the counselor told me was, I could have went, as far as I know, they will pay for college for free.
You had no idea.
I had no idea, and I'd already got a college degree. I'm like, I wish I'd have known that back then. Now, please don't hold me saying everybody is going to get a free college education. Reach out to it, but one of the things I believe that's out there.
I think the Workforce Commission makes a lot of accommodations.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't sit and say I'm disabled or I'm not able to do this. Get the resources that you need, and you'll be surprised. Because they're trying to normalize and humanize the community.
Very much so. Mm-hmm. And we live in a society now, like for me, like doing my music, let's say, there's so much out there that there's people that want to help that say, hey, you can advertise or whatever, say, I've got this disability. I just need you to get me to the gig, set me up, and transportation like that. Then there's Uber. There's all kinds of stuff out here that you can get around. So,
Joe, how has all of this impacted? You talk about the anxiety that comes, especially because of uncertainty and all that. Because I know that there may be days that you still sit and be like, what if this was unsuccessful? What if the vision progressively go bad? How has all this impacted your mental health? Because there may be moments that you're thinking, if I was not visually impaired, I would have, maybe this is not where I'll be today. How do all this play in your mind? How has this impacted your mental health?
The side of that, because, I guess in a nutshell, what it's done to me is this. If I was told initially at 8 years old, and if I had the capacity to think like a mature adult, and if I was told this, Joe, you're going to go blind. I got bad news for you. You're going to go blind, but you're going to have 58 years of your life that you can be independent. You can have a professional career. You can pursue your musical things. And then at some point you may lose your vision completely. Do you want to, is that going to be okay? Or I could take away your vision right now and you'll be completely blind your whole life. Because like I said, my wife works with somebody that's working at a very high position with a company that has no vision and has had no vision for God knows how long. So I guess my point is this, is that I'm always like, I'll cross that bridge. Well, if that happens, then we'll look at that. I'm not going to sit here and say, what?
Sometimes that's
what
all
if?
We can do.
That's right. And so I've had 58 years of my life plowing through this and dealing with this. And yes, there's been times where I've, yes, I wish I could just jump in the car and do this for myself. I wish I could do this. So that's the main thing is you have to be and I'm far from organized, but you have to always rely on people, at least for the transportation side.
Right.
But with this said, there's all kinds of organizations out there. There's jobs that will literally get you to and from the work. There's this and that. So I'm not a big sob story guy that says, oh, I just can't drive. What am I going to do? That's why when I see things like on people that have had issues with whether it's losing their license for DWIs or whatever, and they think, how am I going to function? You can't go through life. Well, I've lived my whole life without driving. So, and I'm successful at what I do.
Right.
So,
and sometimes, Joe, sometimes our condition or our disability does not affect just us. It may affect those around us. Especially when we are incapacitated in one way or the other that we cannot fully thrive independently.
Sure.
Joe, do you ever feel like you have been a burden to someone and do you ever, and no one wants to be a burden to another person. We want to be as independent as much physically, mentally, socially, as much as we can be. But sometimes we have that limitation. And when you feel like you have to depend on somebody for something.
Oh, yeah.
Do you feel like you're a burden to your wife sometimes?
Yeah, for sure.
I am sure most of the time she's the one who...
Yeah.
And I was surprised. I'm like, okay, she guides you most of the time.
Yeah.
But she doesn't work with you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
but you're pretty independent and
Yeah.
things like that.
No, you have those feelings, and one of the things I think I would touch on is when I had kids, I never wanted. Now my kids helped me quite a bit, but I never wanted, as they were growing up, to feel like I've got to take care of Dad. I got to make sure Dad is. I didn't want them to know Dad's visually impaired, so I got to do this. I got to do. Now, have they done that? Of course they've done that many, many times. And I wish I could just kind of go through life and not having to put my hand on somebody's shoulder. But they've been wonderful with just stepping up and doing that and helping me. But yeah, you feel like, but what's the flip side? I mean, it's who I am, but yeah, there's times where you don't want to feel like a burden. And that's just kind of who I've had, and I've had to rely. You have to rely on people at times. But with that said, there is so much that you can do.
Even when we have 100% vision, sight,
exactly,
we still have to rely on people.
That's
sometimes.
right. And luckily, like I said, it's defined it's not defined who I am, but it's who I am. Whether it's whether I had it's a lot of times. There's a movie out there. I think it starred Val Kilmer. I don't know. I saw it, and it's about a guy who was blind. He plays a guy that was blind, and then he gets his sight back. And he was so freaked out about having perfect vision and he could not mentally deal with the fact that he had sight. And he wanted to go back to, I can't remember the name of the movie, but
oh, wow.
Sometimes I actually have these fleeting thoughts of, how would I be different? Would I have the same sense of humor? Would I be this and that? And I don't know that answer. I just know that I am who I am because of the cards that I've been dealt,
Right. And I just admire you so much, Joe. The joy that you have, the motivation that you have inspired so many people.
Thank you.
Are there any words that you can tell even the young people growing
Sure.
up with this disease? What can you tell them? Especially, how can they stay motivated? How can they still pursue their dreams without falling, thinking that I am blind,
That's right.
my life is going to be blind, or I am visually impaired. At one point, I'm not going to be seeing.
Yeah.
So what's the point even trying? What is
Sure.
the point even struggling? What is the point even trying to go to school when
Yes.
this
Yeah.
is how it's going to end? What advice do you have for people like that?
Well, two things I would say. Number one is that I think you had a beautiful quote, and I've never heard that, and I think that's something that is amazing. The difference between sight and vision. Mm-hmm. Yes, we may not have sight, but you can't lose your vision in your life and your goals, right? Mm-hmm. So with that said, that speaks for itself. There's nothing that you cannot do. There's people that work at high functions that are way more. They're blind. They're completely blind. There's folks, whether it's celebrities. I'm sorry, bumped into that. Is that back good? Okay.
Yeah.
There's people that are completely blind that hasn't stopped them. There's a gentleman named Steve Wynn who's like the king. They call him the king of Las Vegas. He owns whatchamacallits, big. What are those things they gamble at? Big. Can't think of the name of them. So nothing should stop you because of what you're going through. The vision that you have shouldn't stop you, and that's the main thing. Is just don't let it define who you are, and don't let it stop the things that you have. And reach out and find the resources that can help you at a young age. Like I said, don't wait till you're in your 50s to start to. I don't want to say to see the light. To find the help that and be open with what you're having, because I think that a lot of things would have been a little bit easier for me and a lot more less awkward and a lot more less uncomfortable, and the anxiety probably would have been a lot less for me dealing with if I would have dealt with it a little bit at a younger age, whether even in high school.
I think there's time for everything, Joe. I really think there's time for everything. You work full time.
Yes.
you don't go around looking for self-pity. You don't go around calling everybody to be sorry for you.
Yes.
You don't ask people to do things for you. You do everything you can do for yourself, except when it gets to the part that you need that physical guidance. Like there is a step here.
Sure.
There is this here. Like, okay, your plate is on the left, this is on the right. And sometimes you can even figure that out by yourself.
Sure.
And like you say, it may not be vision. It may be something else we are suffering with.
That's right. That's right.
If we can go through it graciously, owning it, and say, I will do my best.
That's right.
I will not quit. I think that's the message of hope hope and light that you're sharing out there.
Yes, yeah, it is. One thing I want to touch on this last thing or whatever, but me working in a nursing home, and I think I can't remember his name, and I can't use his name anyway, but he was almost completely blind. He had lost his lost his vision later in life more quickly. I can't remember what type of disease it was, and he was struggling with different things. And I came in to his room, and we were talking, and I actually said, he was having a really, really hard time with it because he had lost, and he couldn't do this, he couldn't do that, he couldn't do this, and I was kind of telling him about some of the cane training and everything like that, and letting him know about some of these services and about all this different stuff. And he was in tears saying how I was bringing this, he said, almost like an angel in his life that was coming in at this point. He was older than me too. That I was affecting him in this way, right? And through that, I realized then, and this was less than a year ago, I realized then that I said, wait a minute, I am preaching to you about all of this, and I still am having a hold up, me personally working with my cane, which I should have been working with. Now, I'd already gone through cane training, and I still psychologically was having a hard time at this point, going, you know what, I need this cane, I need to use this. And so it was at that moment that I told him, I said, you have inspired me to use my cane and to do this, because I was telling him about all this stuff. And I said, that's almost hypocritical for me to not embrace my cane and reach out and use it in the situations that and he could not get over the fact that I was inspiring him.
You guys were inspiring each other.
Exactly. So here he was, and so those are the things that I try to remember. So when I grab the cane, I think of him, like, say, you know what? I'm inspiring him. I need to inspire him and walk the walk too, and use the kings. And another thing I told, one of the things is I was telling you, I never wanted to bring attention to my disability, and here I always wanted to stay in the background and not bring attention. And when you have a cane, it's like it's shining a light on you, like, here comes the blind guy. Well, with that said, I saw it as a weakness. I saw me using this as, oh, he needs help. He's weak. He needs to do this. And the lady that was the vision specialist was saying, Joe, you're seeing it through the wrong way. You're seeing this. That's a strength. When I see somebody walk, this is the doctor talking to me, when I see somebody with a cane or a walker or a wheelchair, that is strength. They're saying, okay, I've got this going on.
Yeah, I've got this going on. I'm not just going to sit at home
Yeah.
and wait for somebody.
Yeah.
That is strength.
Yeah.
I am visually impaired, but I'm not going to sit and wait for somebody to take care of me.
That's right.
I can still go out there. I can still go do my grocery. I can still go to a job. I can still do the things that I want to do. I will not sit at home. That is a strength. And with everything, I want to close with that. That is the strength. Owning your condition is a strength. And sometimes we say, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. With Joe has made more than lemonade. Joe could sit at home and say, I am disabled, and get all the amenities or the privileges that he can get as a disabled person. He's out there killing it. He's out there thriving. He is out there, most importantly, serving the community, serving, making so many people happy. I've read about Joe's biography, and I've read about the things you do. You've been doing that for 32 years.
Yes, ma'am.
You've been doing 17 years at the same place. If you were not just magical, you will not stay there for 17 years. And this is, you just went through a survey and they are talking about your work, not even knowing that you're visually impaired.
That's right.
How much else can Joe do? And that relates to us. We may have sight, but not vision. I hope this inspires someone to build on their vision, not to give up. I hope this inspires any disabled person out there. It may be a physical or mental disability. Do not give up. There is hope somewhere. And that hope may just come from you. It may not be from the science. It may not be from technologies. It may come from within you. How about it's not just your physical disability? How about it is your inner strength that people can see? How about it is something that can come from within you, that someone can also gain something from, that you can live for? Do not quit. Do not ever quit. Even when you feel rejected, when you feel stigmatized, when you feel like you do not belong, or when you feel like others treating you anyhow, find that inner strength in you. You have it. Seek help. Check out the resources, but do not give up. That giving up should not be an option for you. Joe was diagnosed at 8 years old, from 4 to 8 years old. If he had given up, he will not be celebrating 58 years of not just life, but of living. Joe is not just existing, he is living. Even more than some people who have 100% sight, who are not disabled in any way, but maybe disabling themselves. I am so happy you guys are watching. So many of this discussion can impact our mental health. Joe is using his own positively. And again, what is our health without our mental health? Mental health is not something that we talk today and end today. It is a crippling effect. It is a cycle. It is a journey. Whatever we go through in life affects our mental health. How do we want to handle that? Do we want to act like Joe, or do we want to be the quitters? Our mental health is a journey. Let us take the wheels and ride well together. Thank you all. Until next time, bye-bye.